and welcome to module number 10. So till now we have covered till module number 9 and now we are starting with AWS advanced networking. So when I'm starting with advanced networking, I'm expecting that you are already through with module number 3, which is our basic networking concept, where we have already discussed what is VPC. Even we started with what is IP, what is CIDR, then what is virtual private cloud, VPC. In that we have discussed subnet, public subnet, private subnet, internet gateway, route table. So we discussed all those things. We also talked on elastic IPs. We talked on NAT gateway. We talked on VPC security, NACL and security group. So that all we have already covered. So if you have not watched the module number 3, it will be tough for you to understand module number 10, because here we are directly going and taking the CIDR's IP like that. So please make it sure that you are aware of module number 3. And now we are moving to module number 10, which is AWS advanced networking. Now here we'll be talking on topic 1, which is VPC endpoints. Then we'll be talking on VPC peering. There'll be a lab 10.1, where it will be creating a VPC peering connections. We'll be talking on VPN and what is direct connect. What is VPN is virtual private network, and what is direct connect. And we'll also be talking on AWS transit gateway. So these are agenda of this particular module. So let's start with topic 1, that is VPC endpoint. So in this module, in this video, we'll talk on VPC endpoint. Let's start on VPC endpoint. Now, you know that we have already covered VPC, VPC and NAT gateway and everything. Fine. So I'm starting from that point only. Again, I'm saying if you have not watched, kindly watch that. So what we already did, that we have created VPC. So let's say VPC is here. Fine. So we have a VPC. Let's say the name of this VPC is Geeks VPC. And the CIDR of this VPC is 192.168.0.0/60. And let's say there are two subnet. One is public subnet, and one is private subnet. Private. So you know all these things, private subnet. Now when a subnet is public, because we have an internet gateway, let's say it's a Geeks internet gateway, and when a internet gateway is connected to a subnet, then that subnet become public subnet. Fine. Now you know, so I'm just giving you a brief discussion. So now what happened, if you know it very well, that when we discuss NAT gateway, so if there is one EC2 instance here, now you know what is EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud, which is a server. So let's say there is one EC2 here. Let's draw like this. And there is another EC2 here. Now, if you remember that, so if I am, let's say both are Linux server. So if I'm typing a command yum update -y in this system, so this system will be able to update itself because it is connected to internet gateway, and via internet gateway it will go to internet. So it will go to internet, which is nothing but 0.0.0.0/0, and it will be able to update itself. But if I type the same command over here, yum update -y, you know it very well, the server will not be able to update because updates are available on internet, and this subnet is a private subnet which is not connected to internet gateway. So what you will get connection timeout within 1 minute. So in order to address this, we have NAT gateway. So you remember that we have already talked on. So we have a NAT gateway. So what we do, we deploy NAT gateway. We deploy NAT gateway in a public subnet. We give elastic IP. We have already talked on what is all these things. And then we connect this NAT gateway to elastic to our private subnet. Now via NAT gateway through internet gateway, now if I type the same command, I'll be able to update myself. So now the private route table has 2 entry. So you know route table we have already discussed. So I'm just giving you a brief on that. So now private route table. So even I'm making a public route table as well, just for a brief introduction. So you know route table has 2 entry. One is called target and one is called destination. destination. Here also, so this is a public route table and this is a route table for private subnet. So target local and destination is 192.168.0.0/16. Here also target and destination and one entry local and one entry 192.168.0.0/16. But public route table can go out via internet gateway. So via internet gateway, what Geeks internet gateway, it can go out 0.0.0.0/0. And now if it is also connected to NAT gateway, so it also can go outside via NAT gateway, where 0.0.0.0/0. So this is what we have already discussed in module number 3. So I'm just giving you a recap. Now coming back to the next situation. So let me remove all these things. So we have already talked on this. So let me remove. And I'm putting one question in front of you and think from the perspective of organization. Think from the perspective of security. So now the perspective is, so now let me delete this. Okay. So let's say we have one S3 bucket. So we have one S3 bucket. And you know that S3 is a regional service, but it is not a VPC service. So we have already covered S3 so much. So S3 is a regional service, but it is not live inside the VPC. When you create S3, you do not select any VPC. So now organization wanted that you to make a connection with this instance, let's say instance number 2, which is in a private subnet, and let's say this is instance number 1 with S3. So now how you will make a connection. So as per your understanding till module 3, what you will say, what we should do, we should create NAT gateway in a public subnet, allocate it a elastic IP, then via internet gateway, it will go to internet, and via internet, it will make a connection with S3. So it is going to make a connection with S3. So it will be something like this. Now, when you give this solution to your organization said, what? We are connecting a server which is in a private subnet. We are connecting to S3. So we are connecting this server to S3. That is overall we are establishing a connection. And for that we are using NAT gateway. And NAT gateway is taking our traffic to our internet. So internet itself is a threat. We cannot go with internet. So in that case, we cannot go with internet. So what we require a private connectivity. So they are looking for a private connectivity, private link. So here the traffic is going on a internet, where when the traffic is going on an internet, so organization said, no, we are not going to take a chance. So moving a traffic to the internet is not accepted. Now let's talk about NAT gateway. What is NAT gateway? So NAT gateway is a device. It itself has a hourly charge. So NAT gateway device charges are $0.045 per hour. So if you are using for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, so can you calculate it? Now, other than that, so organization use for so many days, fine. I'm just giving you an example. Other than that, there is data transfer charges also. That is also $0.045 per GB. So hourly charges are there and data transfer charges are there. So organization said, what is the use of NAT? Even we are not getting security, and other than that, it is costly. So why we are choosing this NAT gateway? We don't want NAT gateway. So they said, we don't want NAT gateway. We don't want elastic IP, and we don't want any internet gateway. Even we wanted to have a private connectivity with a private subnet with the resources of AWS. Either it is S3, Dynamo, or any service. Now, when this need to be discarded, then there come a service which is called VPC endpoint. So if it is not required, let's remove this. If NAT gateway is not required, let's remove that. If elastic IP is not required, let's remove that. Then, and internet is not required, let's remove that. Then what is required? Our private connectivity. So if internet gateway is not, so let's remove all those things. Fine. So for public subnet, let it be internet gateway will be there. So let me make it for it. So internet gateway, let For public subnet, internet gateway is there. So we are using internet gateway but for private connectivity. What exactly we are doing? Now we are connecting VPC endpoint. So we are making a VPC endpoint. So this is nothing but a VPC endpoint. Now this VPC endpoint does what it does. It makes private connectivity. So the data moves from VPC endpoint to S3 via AWS backbone network. So this network is not internet. This is AWS network. This is AWS backbone network. Backbone network. So now the data is flowing on a dedicated AWS network. So now you are making a private connectivity. So this is also called private link. So this is also called private link. This is also known as private link. Fine. Now coming back of VPC endpoint. So VPC endpoints comes in two options. So if I talk about VPC endpoint, it comes in two options. One option is gateway endpoint. Please make a note of it. Gateway endpoint. And one option is interface endpoint. So it comes in two options, gateway endpoint and interface endpoint. Now gateway endpoint supports two services. So gateway endpoint support only two services, one S3 and one DynamoDB. So this is, while interface endpoints support S3 and other AWS services. So there are many AWS services. So along with S3, it also support other AWS services. So now S3 is supported by both the gateway endpoint and interface endpoint. Now let's have one more difference. Gateway endpoint, what it does, it create a route table. So what it does, it create a route table. Whenever we are connecting to S3 or a DynamoDB, so it create a proper route table. So like this, it will create a route table. So if I talk about, so it is going to create a route table. So now this subnet will have a route table. Let me draw a route table. So one target, one destination, one entry, very well, that will come, that is local, and 192.168.0.0/16, and another entry will be via VPC endpoint, or you can say via VPC gateway endpoint. It is connecting to S3 and whatever S3 is. Fine. So that is what you are making a connection. So it will make a proper gateway, proper route table entry. While if I talk about interface endpoint, it uses ENIs. What is ENI? Elastic Network Interface, or you also call that NIC cards, NIC, Network Interface Cards. Fine. Now the second question is, you must be thinking, gateway endpoint is also supporting S3. Interface endpoint is also supporting S3. So a question come in certification exam. Then in which situation I should use gateway endpoint and in which situation I should use interface endpoint? Well, while connecting to S3. So when we are connecting to S3, we have two options. Now, when you are connecting from VPC, so when you are connecting from VPC to S3, then use gateway endpoint. So when you are connecting to S3 from VPC, then use gateway endpoint. Gateway endpoint. First point. Second point, when you are connecting to S3 from your office, that is, you are making a virtual private VPN connection. So from your office, fine. You're not in a VC, somewhere other than, from your office via VPN connection. So we'll be talking on VPN here only, and via direct connect. So I'll be talking on VPN and direct connect. Then in that case, we use interface endpoint. So this is very important to make a note of it. So this is something very important. You have to make a note of it. Fine. So 2 points are actually very important and kindly make a note of it. So this point, when to use S3 for gateway endpoint, or when to use gateway endpoint for S3, and when to use interface endpoint for S3. So these are two very important terms which you have to make a note of it. Now coming back to a console, let me keep all these things. So let me come to a console, AWS console, my AWS console. And here I'm in Mumbai. We go to a VPC. So I'm going and selecting a VPC. Now in VPC when I'm going, so please make a note of it. So if I in VPC only, we have endpoints. So if you click on endpoints, I'm going to show you. When you click on create endpoint, so here when you go and search, so here you have endpoints. You can see interface, so much interface. We have total 162 services, and many of them are supported by, interface. But I wanted to know which services are supported by gateway. So you type here gateway endpoint. So let me gateway. So when you enter gateway, so here you have gateway two, only for two, one for Dynamo and one for S3. Fine. Now, if I wanted to know, so I told you that gateway is only for two. If I wanted to know which services, which endpoint support S3, you type S3. So S3 is supported by gateway, and S3 is also supported by interface endpoint. So it is supported by both. Fine. And I told you when to use what. So this is what I wanted to show you on a console, that you have a proper understanding that what exactly VPC endpoint is. So what VPC endpoint is, it is making a private connectivity. First of all, it is making a private connectivity. So it discarded NAT. So there is no, because NAT was taking us to internet. So it discarded NAT, and it's that too, NAT gateway is costly in comparison to these endpoints. So overall, endpoint, what is VPC endpoint, what are different VPC endpoint we have, and when to use which VPC endpoint, I have discussed everything so that you understand it clearly. So at last, I'll only be saying thank you so much. Be in touch. In second video, we'll be talking on VPC peering, which is very, very important and very interesting. So